You'll curse the day you did not do all that the Phantom asked of you.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Ange.
We're
Nerdazons.
I loved it. It was so good.
I don't know why I hate doing these.
I'm just sad that we're not recording in person again.
I know, that was really good. We'll have to really forward plan for the next episode because it was so much better to do when we recorded the last episode together.
It did, for sure.
So this fortnight was actually my choice, and I chose it because the 1989 is a little bit of a guilty pleasure. It's a very underrated film. Obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street was one of my favorite horror series, and I love Robert Englund. I met him. He was so nice, and I just needed somebody else to see this version so I can talk to someone about it. Sadly.
Even though I promised I'd see it with you and I didn't.
I know, so annoyed, but I'm glad we can finally talk about this one because yes, it's a film that I really like. But let me just go into the synopsis really quickly so we can get into the thick of it. So also, just to pre-warn everyone, yes, I am aware this isn't the original Phantom of the Opera and there are many, many other versions of it, but I chose this one specifically, because I really like it, and I think probably the most well-known version is the 2004, which is why I chose these ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also it's 80s and you love the 80s.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. Okay, Phantom of the Opera 1989. A young soprano becomes the obsession of a horribly disfigured composer who has plans for those who oppose him or the young singer. Phantom of the Opera 2004. A young soprano I think it's the same. A young soprano becomes the obsession of a disfigured and murderous musical genius who lives beneath the Paris Opera House.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay, so let's start with story. So originally, Phantom of the Opera is a horror film. It was done in, I think, the 30s, and it was always a horror film, and it was always a disfigured opera singer. I'm just going to come outright and say it. The 2004 is not disfigured whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my points is that he has a little scar on his face. Yeah. Like, really, mate? Is that it?
He still looked handsome, you know? He was supposed to be grotesquely horrific, his face. So that is something that is very different in the storylines, I find. I think they still rolled with it to try and make it like he was disfigured, but it really didn't come across that way. But story. So in the 1989, the Phantom was a musical genius. He was like a composer, and he made a deal essentially with the devil or just some demon who was walking around in the whorehouse, but made a deal so his music would be heard in replace of his face being disfigured. And I think that is such a cool addition.
But what I don't understand, right, is that he said that he wants his music to live on forever, right?
Yes.
So why in the 1980s one is it like she's like, oh, I found it, you have to search through all of this stuff. Like, if he wanted his music to be well known, wouldn't it be like Beethoven, Mozart type stuff that lives on forever, not a tiny piece of paper that's hidden away and has to be found?
Yeah, I think it's because there was tragedy around it, and that's what Molly Shannon's character said.
I know.
I love her.
I was like, oh my God, is that Molly Shannon?
And how young was she?
So cute.
So good. But she says, you know, it's a composer who all she can find was that he went on a murdering spree. And so I guess if that's what's like derailed your career, of course your music's not going to be found, and it was never completed.
I know, but I just think, you know, massive plot hole that you want your music to live on forever, but it has to be found by...
I don't think it's a big plot hole. I just think, you know, I feel like it's also one of those dodgy ways, you know, the devil gets out of, you know, making a deal with you where it's never what you actually expect.
Yeah.
So that's that one. The second one, in the 2004 version, the story is different. So he was disfigured as a child, which again, they made like a really big sob story about how disfigured he was, and he would just get beat up, which was horrible. Like, I think that was really sad. But then you see his face at the end, and I'm like, I don't see why you were so hated.
Like acne scars, bro. Like, who hasn't got those?
Yeah. So he gets, saved by Miranda Richardson's character, I've forgotten her name, bear with me, by Madame Giddy.
Mm-hmm.
And she brings him back to the opera house, and he pretty much lives and grows up there. So the Phantom story is quite different already. I kind of like the fact that he was a composer. I think it connects the Phantom with the story more, whereas, he just grew up in an opera house. That's why he really loves opera,
And also, I liked that in the new one that it did start out as black and white, and it was like, I was like, wait, am I watching the right movie? Am I watching the 2004 one, or am I watching the one from the 20s? I really like that. But a point that I want to make is Minnie Driver's character. Minnie Driver can sing. Everybody knows that Minnie Driver can sing.
She didn't for this one. No, and she was the only one in the cast who didn't.
Why did Gerard Butler have to sing?
I don't think he was that bad.
He was terrible. He was shocking.
We've kind of crossed into story/soundtrack here. So my view on the soundtrack, I don't think he was shocking. I honestly think he was fine.
Mediocre.
I don't think he was great, but I don't think he was bad. Like, I've seen actors who can sing even worse.
I know, but the whole point of the story is that he can sing. He's got a phenomenal voice.
I don't think he's meant to have a phenomenal voice. He was just the one that was meant to guide and teach. I
was telling Ange beforehand that I didn't know much about the story, but I was watching, bits and pieces leading up to this, and even on the Broadway, they can sing.
Yeah, and, so the interesting story, I think, fact, as I already mentioned, the 2004 is the only musical version. It's the first version of it. So Andrew Lloyd Webber, obviously musical genius, composed for this, and then the Broadway sparked from it. Or did he do the Broadway first?
I think he did the Broadway first.
But still, it was the first musical version. So he obviously composed it, tweaked the script and screenplay to suit the music. I think for a film, it was really good, and it blended really well.
I didn't realize that it wasn't meant to be a musical.
It was a horror thriller. It was always meant to be that horror thriller, and I think it was just always meant to be set in an opera house, but it was never meant to be an actual musical.
And I didn't realize that in the 80s one, they changed the name slightly, and I didn't like in the 80s one that it was just a dream sequence.
I didn't mind it.
As soon as I watched it, I said this last episode as well, that as soon as I watched it, I was like, this is why Ange should be, this is why Ange chose this. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to watch the 2004. And you're like, what? We were meant to watch the 80s one together. Sorry.
I was so angry when I read that message. I'm like, why didn't she listen to me? And then you didn't listen to me for like 5 things that day. Anyway, off topic. So back to the story. The story is quite different. I like the 89 story. I feel like it's simple. It adds the horror element to it, which it's meant to have. I feel that it really shows the obsession, whereas in the 2004 one they've added more of a love element. So you had Raoul in it, you had the interest of the Phantom where she was prepared to give her love away to him in order to save someone else. There was just so much more depth to that love triangle, and part of me was like, you know what, I actually don't need that. I like the simpleness of the 89 one.
I was just like, oh, you're so creepy. How can you love this girl after you just met her? Like, I felt so icky. The way that, he fell in love with her, and after just meeting her that once.
And, the Phantom in the 2004 one?
Yeah, he was like, I need to be with her, and you're just like,
I think the Phantom knew her since she was a child. So when she was orphaned, she went to live with Madame Giddy, at the opera house. So she was there from like the age of 10. And so she's been singing and everything, and he's been teaching her the whole time.
Another point that I have to make about the 2004 is that everybody loved Minnie Driver's character, right? Carlotta. They were like, oh my gosh. And then they heard the other girl sing, and then they're like, oh no, wait, we now like the new girl. But the thing is that the crowd still applauded for Carlotta, and it was, yeah, I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I think she really captured the diva for sure.
Oh yeah, she was amazing.
I think we might move into characters. We're a little bit off topic here, and the story kind of moves into this area. But let's start with Carlotta first. So she definitely did play that diva, and I think in the 89 one with Bill Nighy's character, he really showed how things are manipulated in the back. So like, even though people really liked Christine in the 2004 one, the owners and the managers were like, we'll make sure we make the star Carlotta. And it just really showed how easily it can, that like they can manipulate who will be the star and who won't be the star. Even if the crowd prefers Christine, they still would, like, they will push Carlotta to be just by the power that they have. And I feel like Carlotta is really important for that.
Yes.
Because it kind of adds an obstacle for Christine and her career. But then it also shows the obsession of the Phantom of like, well, hey, I know who's got the talent. You should be pushing her forward. You're making me angry by not listening to me, sort of thing. And it just, like, it all revolves around that diva and the actions she does and what everyone else does to try and please her.
Can I just say one thing that just popped into my head?
Yeah.
In the 2004, when the Phantom's like down in the pits and he's like, you know, swimming along, all I could think of is that is like so putrid.
Yes.
That water. And
I thought the same.
And I hated like the effects of the candles coming out of the water. Like, it just was just weird to me. And
I thought it was really theatrical and gothic, and I thought that was really great.
All I could think of is how much would that stink, and like, why would you want to take somebody down there? And because
it's meant to show that, you know, he's been outcast by society and he's been forced to live there. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. But I like in the 89 one, and this is, I think, the biggest plot twist why I liked it, is that the Phantom came up with his own solution to the problem, and that's just by finding a new face. Instead of a mask, he had other people's faces as his mask in order to be present at the opera or in order to go and see Christine. And I loved that idea. I thought it was just so grotesque. And to me, that that makes him so much more that grotesque creature that should be in the horror film.
And at the end, when I was like, oh, here he is, Robert Englund. It didn't click into my head that was like the Phantom. Maybe I should have known it from the beginning, but I was like kind of getting into it. And I was like, wait, why is he there? What? And at the end, when he opens.
She rips. Oh, yeah, when he opens up the case.
And there's like all these faces. I'm like, oh, that's so gross. Oh.
I know, but look at how far he's come with technology.
I know. Even in the 80s.
I thought it was great. Just on the prosthetics there. I know we're jumping all over the place, but the prosthetics, and this is, I think you can obviously tell that, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street was a big influence on this one, because it's very similar prosthetics. When he was cutting away at his face, and then when he'd have to change it and repaint it on, it was just like, you know, it's one thing to have prosthetics and makeup done to record. It's another thing to have it there in order for you to record putting it on. And I just thought it was just so cool.
That was such a better idea. And to have him not only wear the famous mask, but also put a bandana over his face. And I thought that was way more creative. Definitely Robert Englund wins.
Yeah, it was so good. And even just back to the prosthetics and makeup, I really liked how it It didn't last long at all. And the longer he would talk, the more the scars would start to show, or the makeup would start to fade, and the skin will start to deteriorate on his face. It didn't last more than a couple hours. And I just thought that was so cool, because you wouldn't think something like that. But, you know, especially in late 1800s.
Yeah, yeah. That was so gross, and that's why I automatically thought, oh, Ed should slay this, because it's so gross.
It's such
Right.
a good story than just finding a mask and hiding your face. It's like, let's get creative. Like, sure, you'd be twisted and morphed if, like, your face has been, like, twisted and morphed, you know?
Mutilated,
Like,
yeah.
your personality will go that way as well.
And I think, as character-wise, I think Robert England was he had more presence in his
Yeah.
character, and he was not likable, but I was more entertained by him.
Yeah, he had that. I feel like he had, I think I said this already, but he had so much more of a musical connection as a composer. Even when he was sitting there watching Christine, he wasn't just staring like Gerard Butler does, but he was like doing the composing with his hands. He was really paying attention to every note as she sung it. And even when she finished and he was like so excited, and then he's like, oh, I gotta wait, no one can see that I'm here. And to see that sort of acting and emotion really makes you think, okay, yeah, he is invested in this character. He has put the time to teach her. Whereas with Gerard Butler, when he was just watching from the shadows, and you just saw the eye. You didn't see, hey, I'm excited that you actually did this really well, sort of emotion and connection. So I definitely agree. Robert Englund wins this one.
Yes, and I liked when he was at the brothel and he was like had his things covered over, and he was like actually making notes, and like you said, he was way more involved in it than that BS that was Gerard Butler.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's hot, and I
I don't
really
get
did
it.
have a thing back then, but
Don't get it. I've seen the 300, I think, halfway through, and I was like, I don't get it.
I don't think he's that like attractive in the 300. I mean,
Can I
have you
tell
not
you a little
seen
fun
P.S. I Love
fact?
You?
Can I tell you a little fun fact about the 300?
Sure.
Mum's boyfriend, David Wenham,
Is in that.
is in that, of course,
Yes.
but he actually had like his abs like
Painted.
painted on.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't know
made
that.
jokes about that. They did a 300 Spartan ripoff or
Oh
something,
yeah.
and they had the fat guy with painted abs. So good. But where were we?
Let's talk about Christine Day and Christine.
Okay. Oh my God. Fun fact.
Yes.
And this, I didn't know this fun fact when I first watched this film, and I watched it back in school, probably like I probably watched it 2005, so the year after or something. Emmy Rossum was 16 when she auditioned for this film, and she was 17 when she filmed it. Gerard Butler was 35, and Raoul was like 32 or something. With a 17-year-old when they were filming this.
Gross.
Could you imagine how hard, even like for them to have to act that out and know, oh my God, she's like underage.
That's gross.
Right? It really
Yeah.
made me think about it twice, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't mind Emmy Rossum.
Yeah.
I thought she was great, but again, I think I liked Jill Schoelen a little bit more.
Okay. I liked Jill Schoelen when she wasn't singing. I'm gonna be a bit weird here, and I'm probably all the opera fans out there are gonna like shoot me in the foot. But I think the reason why I liked Emmy Rossum and probably the soundtrack to the 2004 is it wasn't really traditional opera singing. So it was, I guess, I don't know the proper term for it, but the way I describe it is it's not as harsh because you can hear all the lyrics, so you can follow along with the story. So it's very musical, not opera. Whereas like Jill Schoelen was very operatic the way she sung, and I'm not the biggest fan of like super opera like music, but I much preferred her when as a character outside the singing. Like she really struck me as a girl, you know what? I finally made it. My career's going forward. I really want to work on it. Let me just see where I can go. When she was talking with
Raoul.
It's not Raoul in the second one. I think it's supposed to be Richard.
Oh, yeah, Richard Dutton.
I think so, but he looks really old compared to her.
I know he does.
Anyway, her love interest in the second one, whereas I find Emmy Rossum's Christine very naive.
Mm-hmm.
And like the more I watched it, the more I actually got really frustrated with her compared to the first time I watched it. I could tell, being in high school, having watched it then to now being like an adult. But to be so invested in an angel, like they've come to teach me it's definitely my dad and all that. And it's like, girl, you're technically an adult in the late 1800s at the age of, 17. Surely you don't really still believe in this and you're not being taken for a ride.
There's naive and then there's
Stupid.
You're naive, girl.
Yes.
You're naive, especially when she's at the cemetery and she's like, it's my dad, and then you see him in the shadows. You're just like, oh, God.
It's like, how can you not see the warning signs that somebody is stalking you? Somebody locked you in your room.
Somebody go get her. Sorry, that just popped into my head.
Somebody say menu log. Anyway.
Menu log sponsor us.
yeah. I can see what they were trying to achieve with her, but she was just very, very childish, I found, in the 2004 one. But I really did like Emmy Rossum's voice. It was just so soft, and I guess it is that more musical voice that I could understand and hear everything. Whereas obviously opera, I think it's traditionally either French or Italian. They're really high pitched, really hard to hear. And I think that's why Carlotta in the second one did have an actual opera person voice her. So you could, I guess, capture that natural sort of Italian opera singer essence. Okay, let's move on. Can we move on to, I'm going to just say it as the opera house owners, because they're different names throughout the film. And I really want to talk about Bill Nighy.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I can't believe he had like golden brown or golden sort of reddish hair. I've always seen him with like grayish hair.
Yeah.
And long hair, but it's just weird to see him with colour.
And he was an arsehole.
He was such a dick.
And because you don't see him being an idiot or like a wanker as much in movies as much as this, and I was just like, you're horrendous. Like, where he's like, well, it's $20,000 to keep the Phantom, wink, wink. And he's also like, oh, don't worry about it. And then he goes on this bloody rampage. You're like, well, what do you expect? You should have paid it.
Exactly. And then I also think not only did he manipulate who the star was going to be, but then when they show next scene at the ball and he's trying to get with Carlotta, and it's just like, oh, no wonder you kept her at the headline. He really sums up grubby businessman. Yeah. And I think he played it really, really well. Whereas in the other one, they just seemed angry.
Yeah.
They're just angry of like, oh, I'm losing money. Carlotta's the diva. Let's tend to her. And I just didn't feel the connection to the opera house, whereas it really came across that Nighy had been running it for a while. He knew where the money was. He knew what was going to sell tickets. And he, to the point that he even manipulated the review. That was the guy who was having like dinner with. And it just really, I feel like it really captured the entertainment industry even back then, even though it's in the operas.
Also, how much did like, I'm going to butcher his name, Sirian Hins or Furman. I kept thinking, are you Antonio Banderas? Are you Antonio Banderas?
I think is it like Kieran? Like,
I have no idea. I'm clearly not French.
He does look like that, doesn't he? And he's not French, it's Irish. I think it's pronounced more along the lines of Kieran, but I could be wrong.
Let's just call him Kieran. I like that.
Okay, so you wanted to move on to him?
Yeah, he and Andre.
Were they the owners?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, because he had the little like
Hmm.
moustache. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No,
I was gonna say I don't think they really stood out. I don't think that they stood out as owners. I don't think that they stood out as, I'm gonna lose all this money. Like with Bill Nye, it really came across as, oh, I'm not paying that. Whereas this is
hmm
like, it's all right.
I'm gonna say something here.
Yeah.
This movie bored me to tears. The 2004. I was on struggle street from like the get go, and I was gonna say I'm not poo pooing the 1980s one. I'm just poo
Okay.
pooing the 2004 one because I think the only saving grace for me was Minnie Driver as Coletta because she played that so well as being that diva of go away, get it away from me, and like, no, I'm doing it this way. She was great. But it's a long movie and it's not a great movie when you're just like, how long it's only been like 40 minutes and I've still got 2 hours to go. Um,
Oh,
and I
okay.
think that I mean, don't get me wrong, I like musicals. I like the theater. I go as often as I can. But I felt like there was too much singing that I
But
couldn't.
that's the musical.
I know, but I felt like I couldn't understand what was going on because they were singing their words and I don't know. I had to put subtitles on.
Okay. All right.
So
Okay.
yeah, like and I that's getting to the point of I didn't really connect with any characters and I
Mm.
didn't really like as you were saying with the owners, I didn't care about them. And then Gerard Butler really annoyed me because he was too pretty
Yeah. That
and
that bugged
he's
me.
like that really bugged me. Like, okay, that's fine. Don't put an opera one then. Don't put a musical if you're going to put Gerard Butler because he clearly can't sing, but try to make him more gross. Don't just,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and also like Raoul, I didn't feel that connection between them. And now I think it's because, realizing that she's so young and he was a lot older than her, that's like, yeah, I don't know, but I
Okay.
I and I didn't realize he's the guy out of all of those horror films. Yeah, Patrick Wilson. He was in the Insidious
Oh,
and
yes, yes, that's
yes,
right.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh yeah, that's where I know you from."
I really love the 89 version. And I
Yes.
love the fact that Phantom of the Opera is a horror. It's
Hmm.
a thriller, it's a suspense film, about obsession, about murder and things like that. Whereas they really romanticize the
They
2004
did.
one.
And I think
And
that's what annoyed me is that they did romanticize it so much that you're like, from watching the 1980s one, where I was like, this is sick, Oh, especially the part where the Fanta was going to get mugged and
yeah,
the three of them are like, yeah, come at me, bro. It's like, all right.
yeah,
And then, next minute he has his little knife and seeing the head like roll down like a 10 pin and
yeah.
seeing all of that 80s grossness, I really like that. But
Oh, I'm
also,
glad you liked it.
how freaked out would you have been when you saw, was it Madame Geary that was flayed? No.
No, it was someone in Carlotta's cupboard. I think he was the guy who nearly injured Christine on stage, and so he flayed him and shoved him in the cupboard.
Yeah, but then and then the girl in the bath. Oh, that was like, I was like, heck yeah. She's the one that found the guy in the that was flayed, and then she was in the bath and then she died.
No, she didn't die in the bath. She died at the ball, and he cut her head off and stuck
Oh,
it in the
that's
soup.
right. Oh, that's right. That was so gross.
It's so
That
good.
was so gross.
Yeah,
So
but
good.
like even along the lines of original horror obsession, even deception to Christine. So he
Hmm.
really deceives her, and I feel like all that's gone in the 2004. When she realizes how bad a person he is, she still is willing to accept him as, oh, I owe him so much because he helped me learn how to sing. And they took
Bitch,
the deception
please.
out. It's like, girl, wake up. Like he He was stalking you.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at you clapping like, girl, wake up. Wake up to yourself.
Do you know, I didn't realize, this is a side story. I didn't realize I sometimes clap when I'm talking. And my partner goes to the other day, he goes, why do you do that? And I'm like, I don't do that. What are you talking about? And he goes, you do. Sometimes you'll just be like, you'll clap on the syllables and I'll be like, I don't do that. And now I'm so aware that I do it. I don't know why. Anyway, back to it. I really did love the 2004 version the first time I saw it. It was my first introduction to Phantom of the Opera.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it just grew from there because I found, you know, the other versions of it. I do think it is a very long film, but I think the soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. And I listened to it a lot back in high school as well. I don't like that it is so romanticized. I think they took a lot of, you know, the bad sort of elements out of the story, which is what is supposed to make it that horror story. Like even with, you know, the obsession and deception in the original one, the wedding ring, when he puts it on her and she can't remove it, it's like you literally made your promise, you're stuck. If you remove it, you're going to lose your finger. Like it's just, who comes up with that like sort of torture device to be like, hey, you're mine now.
Yeah.
And it's just those elements that they took out and they added, you know, fluffy roses. Oh, well, not fluffy roses, but they added roses and beautiful, like,
fluffiness.
Yeah, they zhuzhed it up, and I just thought,
But like in the 2004, when the guy was like hanging, you know, everybody's like screaming. I'm like, just cut him down. I yelled at the TV. I'm like, somebody cut him down.
Yeah.
He could have survived.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah, they definitely, I think they tried to build the horror around the love story, but they lost that vibe. Like the atmosphere of the film was gone. I will give the 2004 points for soundtrack and costume and
the costumes,
and
yes,
set
the costumes
design.
and stuff.
Even the set, the opera house just looks
beautiful.
So magnificent and elaborate, and it just makes you sit there and think, wow, to go and watch an opera in the 1800s would have been just an extravaganza.
Yeah.
And then you see in the 89 one, it's like, oh, it looks like a rundown opera house that you've gone to find to shoot this for like cheap, and you didn't even bother fixing it up. But yeah,
it was definitely 2004 was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
Very long though.
It was very long.
Yeah, they could have cut a lot. I think I agree. I had to watch this in two parts, and I sat back and thought, how did I watch this back in school in one like setting? And I didn't even realize it was that long. And I stopped it just after she first meets him, and that was like an hour into the film.
Yeah. I did struggle with this one, but I made sure I watched it in one go. Okay. And I was like, I might as well just get it over and done with. Come on, get it over and done with. But definitely it was beautiful. The soundtrack was beautiful. And as soon as the Phantom of the Opera came on, I was like, oh, I know this song. I know this song. It's beautiful. But him singing, like they could have dubbed him. They could have dubbed him.
I feel like you're really strung up on this. I don't think he's that bad.
Oh, no.
Gerard Butler has sung in the past. That's why I'm like, why are you making
opera
such
singer?
Because none of them are opera singers.
I know that, but like
they're like singers.
I know, but
that's why you can understand what they're saying. As soon as you go to the 89 one and you watch Christine audition at the beginning, and it's that really high pitched, you know, soprano voice, which is opera singing. I just don't like that type of singing, which is why I do.
I think Gerard Butler ruined that movie for me.
Oh, I disagree. I don't think he was that bad. I think the prosthetics and makeup they did on him is bad. And he did definitely show, he made me not so much the obsession and deception, but he definitely displayed possessiveness, which it didn't fit with the rest of the film. They took so much of, you know, those themes out of the story that when you throw that in there, it just didn't make sense with the rest of the, you know, love triangle, love story and all of that. But he did display that.
Also, like one of the scenes that's now coming to my mind that also is drilling into my head that I didn't like this movie is because Raoul only met her like 2 or 3 times.
No, didn't you hear them?
What?
In like when they were childhood friends before her dad died, and when she was orphaned, she never found him again. She said, "You could have said we were the equivalent of childhood sweethearts."
Oh. They were singing so much that I didn't hear them. But
no, it's when her friend is looking for her and she's down in the church and she's like, "Oh, why are you down here? Everyone's looking for you. You did such a great show." And she's just like, she said, "I don't think he'd remember me." And then that's when he's like, "I definitely remember her."
Oh.
You got this all wrong.
I did. When they're down below, and like that's just really funny to me now in my own head where I'm like, that would just stink so much. Where he's tied up, the Phantom's like, who are you going to choose? Me or him? Me or him? And I don't know. I didn't feel that fight for her to keep him. I think she was pretty much like, I'll go with him. If it's going to save your life, I'll just go with him. There wasn't really like, I've got to try and save you somehow or like help you.
But I can see what they did. So when he was tied up, that looked very stage-like. Like it looked like it was on a stage and we're witnessing it, because when it's almost that we can't injure the actor sort of type acting, and that's what it looked like. And then there's one point where he's like, "Don't try my patience." She tries to sort of talk him out of it, and then when he says that, it's like, "Oh, okay, I've got no choice. I do have to go with you, or else you're gonna kill him anyway." So I can see the bit of fight there, and I mean he came all the way down into the lair to try and save her anyway.
I guess
it's just. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it shows her character is very young, naive, and I guess also classic in a way, where you just listen to what's been, like, what you've been told to listen to, because it's, I mean, I hate to say all political, but, young ladies at that time would have, like, men would have known what's best for you.
Yes. And also I don't like movies where there is a damsel in distress. I think that's what also I'm really poo-pooing on this movie. I'm so sorry. I'm trying really hard not to.
Bad.
I'm trying not to, but like, yeah, I felt like she was too much of a victim. In the 2004, and that kind of just got to me, where I think in
she was very strong, the other Christine.
Yes.
She fought, she wasn't going to just stand around and let you attack her. And I agree.
And
I liked
that. Look at
that
her at the end of the 89. Look at her in the 89 one at the end, where she was like, no, I'm going to kill you now that I got a chance.
Yeah.
And like, she actually put up a fight. Yeah. And I was like, you go, girl, you go.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I can see the things you're saying. I do like both versions. I probably am more inclined to watch the horror versions.
Yes.
And the 89, it's so much shorter, an hour and a half compared to, they could cut so much out of the 2-hour film. Also, I just want to say really quickly, because when I went back and rewatched it, I remember stopping at one point thinking, we all know who the real sort of villain was of this film, and that was Madame Geary, Miranda Richardson.
Oh, yep.
Because the whole time I was watching, up until, because I'd forgotten that they included the backstory of him as a child, but the whole time I'm thinking, the woman knows what he's capable of. She lets him go around and does what he wants and potentially injure, harm, or kill people to let him continue to do that and live his life in hiding. And she said that was okay. Even when he formed the obsession started with Christine, and she could see that with all the roses being left for her, she said, it's fine, we'll let that go. She just sort of turned a blind eye to it the whole way through up until the very end. And then when I watched her as a child too, it's like, okay, for a girl, like a young child, to feel so inclined to save another person's life and hide him, obviously you would have been the one to feed him why didn't you teach him anything? If he's only known life in captivity at that point, you didn't teach him what was right and wrong.
I don't get Gerard Butler.
The one time I think what really sold me on him was Love Actually, not Love Actually, P.S. I Love You. And it was just that simple look with a leather jacket, bit of a like smart ass look to his face. And then that I thought, you know what, that
movie really like annoyed me. I do like some romantic movies. Like Hello Stardust is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But
you're very particular with your romantic films.
And also, of course, The Princess Bride. But I don't know. That movie also annoyed me. I don't think I like Gerard Butler. And also, like, he didn't hide his Scottish accent very well.
So, fun facts, and I didn't know this until just now. Just this very second, hot off the press.
Woo woo.
Did you know that this was Molly Shannon's debut cinematic appearance?
Yes, I did.
I didn't know that because I love her like 90s and early 2000s.
Did you watch Superstar?
I don't know.
Her with Will Ferrell?
I don't think so, no.
Man, you need to watch that. If you like her, oh my gosh, it's so funny. She goes, sometimes when I get really nervous, I put my hands, and she puts her hands in armpits, and she's like, and then I
I love Molly Shannon though. I love her. And I just love her. That's so gross.
I know. But yeah, it's one of the only Will Ferrell movies that I like.
Yeah, he's a bit half
him as well.
Yeah, back to the podcast. Did Robert Englund said that this film was supposed to be more of an homage or homage, however you want to say that word.
Homage, mate, homage.
To the old Hammer horror film. So back to sort of that original horror film, which I really do want to go back and watch, actually, the very first one. I think it was something Chaney was the original Phantom. Len Chaney, I think. But yeah, so they tried to obviously make it as much to sort of the original, but with their modern twist of horror.
Well, the director of this one,
he did Halloween 4.
Joel Schumacher. He actually directed Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin.
Just another fun fact, but more so about the 2004 one. When he's got her down in the lair the first time, and he's like, the way he's going to introduce to her, hey, we're going to get married, by showing her like that life-size wax model. It actually wasn't a wax model. She actually stood there. Amy Rossum stood there because they couldn't make the wax model look lifelike. So she just put the veil on, and I think they put a bit of makeup on to make her look waxy. And then they just recorded her like that. So she looked like the model. Yeah. And then I actually saw that scene on YouTube for the Broadway, and they sort of did the same thing where they had somebody else look like the main actress. So then when she like pops out, it makes her sort of faint on the Broadway musical, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I think it's personally the storyline of it that doesn't, like, I have no intentions of seeing this at the Opera House, or they have it on a boat, I think, in the harbour.
I think it's playing at the Opera House now. They do it in different areas. I think at the beginning of the year, for any of our international listeners, they played Phantom of the Opera outside the Opera House. But we had a lot of torrential rain, so because I would love to see this. And then they had a lot of torrential rain, so I thought, no, we'll just wait until it comes back at the Opera House, which it's now back, and they're doing it inside the Opera House. It's just tickets are really expensive, and I chose Michael Sheen's Amadeus. So.
100%.
So I'll choose
that choice. 1,000,000,000% happy with that choice.
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, I think it would be really cool to see the horror done as like not really Broadway because it's not like singing, but as a play.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to see the vibe, kind of like Sweeney Todd before it was a sort of musical, to see that vibe of like horror play.
That would be such a good idea to see it. Like you said, not a big musical. That would be so interesting.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see. Like, and just thinking of all the fake stage
But not
blood.
amateur.
Yeah, it would be really cool. So tell me first, before we get into the questions, how many movie reels do you give these films?
I did write this down.
Good, because I never do. I never prepare myself, but you do.
Phantom of the Opera, 1989. I'm going to actually change it. I did say 2.5, but I'm probably going to give it a 3. It wasn't obviously my favorite film, but I think I enjoyed it more knowing how much you like 80s horror films, and it was very entertaining, and especially like seeing the blood, the gore, and also like you mentioned before, the prosthetics of seeing him like take the staples out, and you're like, this is so gross, but and
that was the 80s.
I know,
and it looks so much better than the CGI now.
Seeing all of how good it was in the fact that like the head in the soup, the being flayed, I liked that it was a horror slasher film. And Robert Englund, I think he is great, even though I think I've seen the first Friday the 13th.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's Jason Voorhees.
Oh, yeah, no, because that's one where he's in the dreams, yeah, and he kills people in your dreams.
Correct.
Yeah, I have seen that one only once ages ago. And I'm like, yeah, I had a lot of fun in this. And, yeah, I would probably watch it again, but in a couple of years. The 2004, I'm giving it 0.5 stars. I didn't like, the only reason why it's getting 0.4 of a star is Minnie Driver. She was so funny in that, and that she played the diva so well, but I was genuinely bored in this film. I'm sorry, I'm looking at your faces going, I'm disappointing you so much, but
oh my God.
I would not watch this film again. I knew some of the songs, and I was like, oh yeah, I know this song, but it was too long, way too long, and I don't know, but we were talking earlier, and I'm just like, Gerard Butler just irks me somehow. Yeah, so I'm giving it 0.5.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm giving
5 stars.
No, I'm going to give the 1989 a 4.
Mm-hmm.
I do know it's a story that not everyone likes, but I really like the
Clearly.
twist. Yes. I really like the twist the 89 one brought. It was just such a different element of, I loved there was a deal with the devil. I loved that the punishment of that deal is his face is disfigured, and he's got to try and find another way to come around that disfigurement. And Robert Englund, and I think this is why he's always played the baddie, but he really does bring those, I don't know, those characteristics, those negative characteristics to these types of characters alive. He really brings it alive, and I think he brought everything that the Phantom is supposed to be to the film. So to me, it's a 4. I love it. I've seen it a few times. If Robert Englund ever comes back down, I'll get him to sign it, but I got him to sign my Freddy vs. Jason.
But even though it was Robert Englund, I wasn't like, oh my God, you're, Freddy.
Robert Englund.
It was Robert Englund, and I felt like he played this similar kind of bad guy character, but he did it so well that I was like,
differently.
Yes,
he does that with, like, I have a lot of Robert Englund's B-grade horror films, and he always brings something different to his movies. And that's what I like about him. And honestly, if you ever get the chance to sit on one of his panels or something, like, he just is Hollywood knowledge. Ever since he was a kid, he's just like, all these like old classic, he grew up in like LA, and like you just go into the shopping market and you'll meet people, and so like he's just done so much. And I really do like
he's
Robert
very
Englund.
underrated.
And I have his biography, and I strongly recommend reading it if you're really into, like, it's just lots of stories about like Hollywood. for the 2004. So when I first watched this film, also it wasn't 2 hours, it was almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it felt like a lot longer
Yeah.
than that for me.
The first time I watched this film, I would have given this also a 4. Having watched it now that I'm older, because I have not seen it pretty much since high school, but having watched it now that I'm older, I would actually drop this film probably to a 3 or maybe a 2.75. Actually, I'm going to go a 2.75. The story does irk me now that I'm older. Cinematically, it's beautiful.
It is very beautiful, I guess.
The soundtrack is great, but the
is.
story is not for me. More on that love interest side of things. It's just,
Yeah.
like, I mean, in high school, I thought, oh, it's so romantic. But now that I'm older, I step back and I'm like, wow, this is
red
not...
flags, red flags, red flags.
And I'm like, this is not what you should be, like, romanticizing as
I'm
a
going to
girl.
actually change my score to a 1 because it was, as you're speaking, I'm like, you know what? It was a beautiful film. But I think it's, the storyline annoyed me. But I kind of wish that I did watch this one with you because we tend to talk about it during the thing and I could be like, maybe if I do watch it again, I wouldn't mind watching it with you.
Okay, we should do it. I just think they really capture that whole opera house, that whole, even in one of the first scenes, and I don't know why, but I really love this shot in the beginning after it goes black and white and it all lights up and all the candles light up. But then you see it's almost like from the very top level and they just film it the whole way coming down. The camera's coming down. You just see people running around. You see all the costumes drying, people getting dressed. And I just think they really brought that, like, life to the opera house. Like, they really brought it to life, I should say. And I think that's, like, such a good shot. And it just really brings that magic to entertainment behind scenes. And you can see why people want to go into acting and things like that. But yeah, now that I'm older, I don't really like the main characters as much as I did back in school. And especially Christine, I realized just how naive she was and how frustrated I got that she kept being like, oh no, it's an angel, they're real. And I'm like, oh my God.
Girl, please.
Girl, please. Yes. It just, that's what brings my score down to a 2.75. But I still like the story. I do like it, and I probably would watch any version of Phantom of the Opera again. I just think it's good. But I prefer the 89, as you can tell.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was. Okay, so let's move to Rotten Tomatoes. Which one would you like to do first?
Let's do the 89. Okay,
what do you think it got on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to guess that the score was from both of what we're saying. I'm going to say Rotten Tomatoes got 50%.
Lower.
Oh. Really?
What have I been telling you this whole time? It's underrated.
But I'm like, it wasn't, by much?
A decent amount.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do I go like 30s? Do I go 40s? Do I go 20s? I'm going to go with 41%.
Oh, close. It actually got 38.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I knew it was underrated, and I feel like the Phantom of the Opera horror story is not as well received anymore. But anyway, have a go at the audience score.
I wrote this down. I said audience score is going to be 60%.
Lower.
By much?
Yes.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well, since
by much, but not by much.
Okay. By smidgen.
Yes.
So in that case, I'm going to go 50%.
Oh, close. 53.
Oh.
Which, when you first made your first guess, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're pretty much where the audience feel this film is. Mm-hmm. I feel like for those who've seen it are fans of Robert Englund and have discovered this film through that. But I just truly think, even if you're not like a Robert Englund fan or a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, it's such a creative version of this film.
And it's gross without being gross.
Yeah.
Because like it would have been scary back in the day.
Yeah.
It would have been like, what? That's but now you're like, I know it's prosthetics.
Yeah.
So, I know that it's not real, but it was so
it was good. Even when we saw, and this part gets me all the time, I can't believe I didn't mention this in the film. I know we were talking about the prosthetics and how good it was when he was unstitching the skin that's on his face and then he's got to put it all back. But even when, like, Robert Englund has a pretty decent sized nose. I don't mean anything by it. It suits him. It's his signature. But when he pulls all the face off, he actually has like a plastic piece of cartilage.
I saw that.
And he has to pull that off as well. And it's like, how did you hide that under your face?
I know. That's what I was like, oh. Like seeing those prosthetics, I was like, they are good. They are
so good. So good. And now they don't do this stuff anymore. This is why I'm so passionate about these films.
And going back, like, it was not as beautiful as the 2004, but I think it was more realistic to the 1800s. Like, it wasn't romanticized.
Yeah, exactly. And it was never really meant to be romanticized. It was always meant to be a monster, and he had those themes of obsession, desire, and all of that, and then anger, obviously, at the end. But they really developed
the twist
the
at the end I really liked.
It was so good,
really
right?
liked the twist at the end, yes. And I'm glad that wasn't spoiled for me.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think the 2004 got?
So I really didn't enjoy this film as much as I thought I would. So I'm going to go with what I thought, and I'm going to give this one like 10%.
Higher.
By much?
Yes.
Oh, okay. If you say like confidently yes. So I'm going to go 42 because that's just what popped into my head.
Wrong.
Oh.
It actually got 33%.
Yes.
And that means the 89 got a higher Rotten Tomatoes score. It was the 89 was 38 and this one got 33.
Mm-hmm. Good. Good. Okay, audience score. From what we're talking about, you weren't super impressed by it more than the 89. I clearly wasn't super impressed about it. So I'm going to say that the audience gave it, I have no idea. I have no idea. First point that popped into my head was 48%.
Higher.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, higher. I don't want to know because I don't know whether or not to go higher or lower, but I'm gonna ask you. 58%.
It got a really high score for the audience. This film has such a cult following, and it has sparked, so much Broadway from this. It actually got 84%.
What?
But after listening to you talk, like, you've made me realize a few things, which has made me bring my score down a lot as well and reflect more at that older age. But I do know this is a very popular film and it has a cult following. But hearing your opinion on this film and then seeing how low the tomato meter was,
I think I'd go with the tomato meter on this one.
I think, you're onto something. If the tomato meter is that low, I didn't expect it to be that low, and I certainly didn't expect the 89 version to be higher, which I'm really happy about because it means that there's a percentage of people that really like that film. So
yeah, like, that's actually genuinely, like, shocked me.
That's the power of cult following. Right, I know. That is a very big difference. We never usually have it that wide.
No, usually like 20% is like max.
Yeah, variance, but this is like a big variance. And yeah, definitely shows you how much, cult followings can boost a film.
Yeah. That's like literally like blowing my mind, and I'm like speechless now going, People,
What?
what?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, each to their own.
shall we move on to
Nerdazons Nerdy Notables!
Okay, so I haven't watched as much. I know last episode I talked a lot, but I haven't watched much because I'm back to studying. But I'm going to quickly go over my notables. I am up to date with JoJo's Bizarre, well, almost up to date with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm up to part 5, and I'll very slowly get my way through that. I've watched a bit more of Fringe, which is
oh,
a
that's got
supernatural series.
the
It's got
guy
Joshua
out of-
Jackson.
That's it. I was thinking the guy out of Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek. Yeah, so I'm up to like episode 9 of season 1. I binged it like on my last weekend. I'm like, all right, let's just play it in the background. Kind of liking it. It is a bit slow. It's not a series that makes me want to jump out and put it on, but it is something that I will finish eventually. Been watching House of Dragon as it comes out, which I'm going to watch after this episode.
I've watched the first episode.
Okay, well, episode 3 comes out tonight, so can you please catch up?
Okay, good. Okay, one thing that I want to say is
Spoiler alert for anyone
no,
who...
no, this is not a spoiler. This
Okay,
is
okay.
just a natural comment. Matt Smith is like, I don't know how I feel about him.
He just, okay, do you know the whole time I watched it, I kept thinking, oh my God, you look like you belong in Lord of the Rings as an elf, not as a Targaryen.
Exactly, right? And then I'm like, where is his eyebrows? And
But
like,
he's always had that though, like it's weird,
Yeah,
like he's got very big like bones,
one of
but
my
he
friends
does...
one of my friends was like, isn't he out of Doctor Who? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, well, he doesn't suit that character at all. I'm like, no.
I think he plays the character bad well. It's just the blonde. And I think that's the same with all of them. Most of the actors who have been Targaryens, none of them are natural blondes. So
No.
it doesn't look right on them.
I thought I was going to get into it more in the first episode, but I'm keen to keep going with it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, but I wouldn't say it's as shit as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, apparently this is based on a book that's already out. It's already completed. So my friends are like, good, it can't get ruined. It can't get ruined. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. That is really it for me. I have been trying to get to the movies to see The Invitation. It's a film that I've been waiting for a while. It's like Dracula, and I'm like, you know what? I am Dracula obsessed, and I've never been able to see like a Dracula type film at the cinemas. So I did see Dracula Untold. Never mind, I lied.
That looks so good though.
Yeah, but I'm really keen to see it. So every time I go to schedule, I was actually meant to go tonight.
Oh no.
But it's all good. So hopefully...
You're recording with me instead.
Yeah, recording this amazing episode. So hopefully I can go this week and see it, because I really, I feel like we're starting to get some vampire flicks come through, which is great.
Yes, and don't forget we're keeping Smile together.
Yes, I know.
Yes. Oh, I started the House of Dragon. I finished What We Do in the Shadows.
I still haven't finished season 3. I think I got about 4 reps in.
It's so good. I think there might be one episode left. Still doing my acting. I'm going to a play on Thursday night, and it's called Nothing. And from the description, it's Lord of the Flies meets Hunger Games.
Oh.
So
it's like, not what I was expecting out of a title that says nothing.
I know. And then also I'm going to a gin festival on the weekend, so that'd be nice. So I'll let everybody know how that one goes.
Yeah.
And then what did I start watching? I was watching something and I'm like, this is really good. Oh, it's English.
Okay. And this is about?
It's a mystery. It's not a murder mystery. Sorry, wait. I'm looking at my Netflix to figure out what I'm watching, and I just saw that Rick and Morty. Does that mean Rick and Morty is out yet? Oh my God, that'd be so exciting. Anyway, so the stranger is this husband and wife, and she's faked a pregnancy, and he's found out after a stranger has said, your wife was never pregnant.
Wow.
So, and then she's like, it's deeper than what you think it is.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
That
actually
sounds
like,
vaguely familiar.
yeah, so it's good so far. I'm only 2 episodes in, and yeah, not much else is happening with me.
So do you want to tell everyone what our next episode is?
My choice next week is going to be a foreign film that I've never seen and an American film that I've never seen, but I've heard really good things about it, Vanilla Sky. And that's
I've
got
never heard of either of
Tom
them.
Cruise and Penelope Cruz, and this is the movie that they met on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not spice things up a little bit?
Why not?
Mm-hmm. And then October is going to be a good one because we're doing horror films. Of course we are.
So excited.
I'm just letting you know now that if Hocus Pocus comes out, I'm doing Hocus Pocus. If that comes out. Hopefully it does.
It should. They've been counting down on Disney Plus on their Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I'm excited. Okay, so if you want to follow us at Nerdazons on Facebook and Instagram, we'd love to hear from you at nerdazons@outlook.com. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your good podcasts.
Until then, stay nerdy.